Hey, thanks for checking out Nuts and Bolts with Tone. Today I want to talk to you about cooling system diagnosis and repair. All right, so back in the day when I first started in this industry, what we had to bleed a cooling system was one of these spill-proof funnels, right? So we got this box here. Obviously I've had it for a long time. I've got it taped up. It's got a whole bunch of different adapters and different, different ways to adapt to the cooling system. Since then, these funnels have come a long way. They make them clear now, so you can see the coolant from the driver's seat. They make them where they have a lot more adapters because a lot of this thing doesn't adapt to most newer vehicles. However, I haven't used this for a long time, and I don't use it very often. And here's why. So back in the day, I used to use this thing, and I would fight cooling systems and fight them and fight them and fight them, and you'd have the heat on and you'd just have bubbles galore, and it would take a really long time to bleed the cooling system. And so since then, obviously got the airlift, right? So I fill it up with this, okay? So that's for servicing the cooling system. Now let's talk about diagnosing the cooling system. So we all know the pressure tester, right? So we got the pressure tester, and I have a snap-on one. So there's mine, and it comes with 5 different adapters. All right, so this is what I prefer. Some guys, they get like the big giant kit, and it's like a generic kit. It's 80 bucks or something like that, and it has like 12 different adapters, and then you can get an additional one that covers most vehicles. I don't like those. I never have liked those. I've had guys that use those and they work fine, but it's just not for me. So here is a really important adapter if you work on diesels, if you work on 6 liters, 6.4s, 6.7s, mostly 6 liters. You want to get this adapter right here. Now this is for testing a radiator cap or a degas bottle cap. Now if you work on 6 liters especially, you want to make sure you have this, because the first step in a cooling system is the cap, and most caps fail. I would say most caps that I test fail, and therefore I keep one in my box. That way if I need one, we just throw it on the truck and then they just order me a new one. Motorcraft of course only. But before the pressure tester, this is the point of the video I wanted to talk about. And now in my 16 years, I've worked with a lot of guys, and I've seen a lot of guys battle things. I've seen them misdiagnose vehicles. I've seen them recommend repairs on vehicles, and they're replacing thermostats and water pumps and radiators and all that, just to in the end find out that it has a blown head gasket, right? And so then you're in a pickle. So what do you do now? Now the customer spent 500 bucks, 800 bucks, 1,000 bucks, 250 bucks. It doesn't matter. And so now you tell them it needs a head gasket. So maybe that's $2,500, $3,000, $4,000, whatever dollars, a lot of money. And so the way to avoid that is, and I've always had it as a shop tool, is you use a block tester. So this is by UView, and this is a block tester kit. Okay, you can use it for gas or diesel. It just turns a different color, provided whether you're testing gas or diesel. So this is the one that I actually prefer. It's a dual chamber. So you got 2 chambers, right? So you open it up and you fill up the first section up to the line. You put it back on. You fill up the second one, okay? And then you put this over the cooling system, and once steam starts coming out, you pump it up. So this fluid is blue. So you put this fluid in here and you fill up both chambers. And now you might wonder to yourself, why do you have 2 chambers? Why would you use 2 different amounts of block test fluid to test a vehicle? Well, that's a really good question, and I have a really good answer. So the reason I prefer the dual chamber is because sometimes, no matter how much you try not to get coolant in here, sometimes you do get coolant in here. Well, if you get any coolant in this, it will turn this fluid yellow. Okay, well, yellow indicates a blown head gasket. So if it's blue, and if you have hydrocarbons or coolant, it turns yellow, and then therefore you have a blown head gasket of some sort, or cracked head, something where combustion is getting into the cooling system. Now, the good thing about this dual chamber is that if your bottom one changes and your top one does not, then there's a possibility that you got coolant in the bottom one, all right? And so that's why I prefer this. I used to have a single chamber a long time ago, and I battled and battled and battled and battled with testing vehicles. And once I used the dual chamber, I vowed I'd never use another single chamber ever again. I just started a new shop, and the shop does not have a block tester as a shop tool, so I just had to buy my own. And the ones I've had to borrow were the single chamber, and so naturally I bought the dual chamber one. Now, this is a really important step, and a lot of people do not do this. A lot of people will just suck some coolant out of the radiator and put the block tester at the radiator and then pump it up. Okay, well that's good, that's bad, because the cooling system is constantly fluctuating with pressure. So as you think it's right, it starts to come up, you suck up some coolant, you wasted your time. So now that's where, that brings me to my spill-proof funnel. Now this is where I do use this tool all the time. Anytime I have a car that I'm block testing, I will put this funnel on there. And so that way I can hold it slightly above and I can start to do my test. And if any coolant does start to come up, I'll see it and I'll catch it and I will stop it, move it away before it actually gets into the tool. So the way I like to do it, and I've seen guys do it a lot of different ways. So I prefer not to make a big fat mess on a car if I can help it. And you gotta warm up a vehicle. So usually what I will do is I bring a vehicle in, and if it doesn't have a puking oil leak, a puking coolant leak, then I will go ahead and throw this funnel on there and I'll block test it right away. The reason I block test it right away is I want to know if it has a blown head gasket to start with. Once you pressurize a cooling system and then you take your tester off, the coolant has to release the pressure, and then therefore you spray coolant all over everything. And so I don't like to do that. Then you make a big mess. And so I usually will block test it first, and that way I know, like, hey, does this thing have a blown head gasket? So I know how deep we're going on this repair. If I hit that tester a few times and the fluid doesn't change at all, then I know most likely I don't have a blown head gasket. Usually if you have a blown head gasket, it will start to change the fluid. Almost immediately you'll notice a slight fluid change, a slight color change. It'll start to turn green a little bit. Sometimes that tells you that there is a possible head gasket issue. If you've got a car that's got a puking coolant leak, obviously you can't test that first. So you want to try to just do your due diligence based on the situation. If it's got a minor coolant leak and you can block test it, you should block test it. Let's make sure that it doesn't have a blown head gasket before you sell them a water pump, and then see if they want to fix it. Because then that gets you in a pickle, right? You know, you do a bunch of repairs and then they don't want to fix it. They don't pick it up, and a lot of times the car's not worth it, and the shop is stuck with a car that's not worth any money and it has a big fat bill. So again, in recap, the spill-proof funnel, I will link this in the description below. There's multiple different kinds. I will link the clear one, because if I was to buy a new one, I would buy a clear one. I will link that below. That's a really good tool, and I find it as a necessity. A coolant pressure tester, I'll link a couple below. This is the Snap-on one. I highly recommend, if you work on 6 liters, that you get an adapter to test the caps. This block tester I think was like 60 bucks. And then from here, all you have to do is buy new block test fluid, which isn't a lot of money. And then when you're all done, obviously you want to use the airlift or a vacuum refiller of some sort. I've had my airlift for, I don't know, 8-10 years, long time. Strongly recommend that. I have another video about that. And I can't imagine ever not having that tool. If mine broke, I would try to get one here tomorrow. That's how important it is to me. So again, this is cooling system diagnosis and repair, mostly diagnosis. So thanks for checking out Nuts and Bolts with Tone. Check out my Instagram at Nuts and Bolts with Tone. See my daily life as a mechanic. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and you'll get notified of all of my future content. See you next time.